Good evening. My name is Robert Stanley. It's October 13th, and this is my week 5 assignment for FTE 217. First part of the video, we're going to be going over a dry fire of the AR-10. First, it is clear of all ammunition. I have no live ammunition here on the table. First thing that we're going to go over is a dry fire. So when you dry fire the weapon, you want to make sure that it's clear, which I have already done. So once you've cleared your weapon, you want to go ahead and take your selector, put the weapon on fire for a dry fire purpose. You want to go ahead and pull the trigger. You should hear the hammer strike. So go ahead. Alright, now that the hammer has struck, to make sure that the hammer resets, you want to go ahead and pull your charging handle, release it and let it go, and then slowly lift off of the trigger. And once you lift off the trigger, you should hear a clunking sound, which is the trigger essentially resetting. So go ahead and listen for that clunk. And there it is. So my trigger has reset. I'm going to go ahead and throw my weapon on safe. And I'm going to go ahead and try to pull the trigger again. So nothing. So it's more of a function check. But when you do a function check, you also want to essentially do a dry fire on it. So that's your dry fire. A function check with dummy rounds. I do not have dummy rounds for this particular weapon. Although the school did send me 308 7.62 rounds, because I have converted this to 6.5 Creedmoor, they will no longer fit, and I do not have those rounds. So, but essentially you would load your dummy rounds here into your magazine, rack your charging handle. In my case, my bolt locks because it is empty, but we'll go ahead and send the bolt forward. Put the weapon on fire, pull the trigger, same thing as a dry fire. In my case, again, I'm going to have to release it, and then upon release, oh, there we go, I'll release again, and there's the reset. So now I can throw the weapon back on safe. And I would eject any rounds that were in here if I had dummy rounds placed in. A live fire function check. In my personal opinion, there is no such thing as a live fire functions check. You don't want a function check with live ammunition. You want to just be able to load the ammunition, pull the trigger, the weapon go off. I mean, it's not really a functions check. That is the weapon operating as it should. So I don't feel like there should ever be a live fire functions check. It's too unsafe unless you're in a range or in an isolated situation like a range, in order to do so. Next thing we're going to go over is the trigger. For the mil-spec trigger, mil-spec trigger takes anywhere between 4 and 5 pounds, sometimes a little bit more, to pull the trigger. But in the case of this one, this trigger came out of my AR-15, so it's been used quite a bit. So when I go to pull the trigger on this, I mean, I'm still pulling the trigger. I mean, I'm not putting any sort of pressure. The trigger on this is pretty broken, so it's actually pretty smooth. Works very well. So as far as trigger smoothness, again, it's 4 to 5 pounds of pressure, and as long as you're firing it right and you do a straight pull back, everything's going to be very smooth. If you jerk your trigger, you're going to pull your rounds off to the left or to the right. I mean, you just have to be very careful when you're pulling the trigger. Next part, we're going to go ahead and measure the barrel length of this. Typically, I would take the barrel or the handguards off to measure the barrel. So we're just going to get this situated here. I'll move my camera back a little bit. So from here, I got the tip of my barrel, and then all the way over here, that's not on camera, is where the lower receiver and all is. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my tape measure. And I'm going to go from where the barrel is to the beginning of the upper receiver. So this barrel in length currently, not including the piece that goes in, or the part of the barrel that goes into the upper receiver, I'm sitting at 23.5 inches. So if you include the other half or the other part, I have a 24-inch barrel with muzzle. Without muzzle, this is a 22-inch barrel. So, I mean, it's fairly simple. You just measure the length of your barrel and actually pull one of the barrels out for the 308. So here's the 308 barrel the school sent. Full length of this barrel is, we'll say 18 and 6/8. That's what we'll call it. 18 6/8, almost 19 inches long. And this is with no muzzle brake on it. To determine your, or for the next thing, I'm sorry, not to determine, but the next thing, we're going to go ahead and do the barrel twist rate. Barrel twist rate on this, we're going to do it on the 6.5 Creedmoor barrel. So I'm going to go ahead and move again. So to determine your barrel twist rate, you want to take cleaning rod with a cloth on it. It doesn't have to have any CLP, anything. And then you want to tape it off at the end, because this is how you're going to do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and insert it in, and then over here you can see I got my tape, and I am in the barrel. So once you start pushing, you want to have this rotate one time. And I cannot get it to go through. So I'm just going to go ahead and explain it. I know the barrel twist rate on this. So what you would do is you would stick your cleaning rod in, and then push in until you've done one full turn. So once you've done one full turn, and mine, I'm going to measure it out where it should be. So, I can't put it on here because what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put the tape back far enough, do one rotated turn after you have measured from the tip of where your cleaning rod goes in to the tape. You pull it in till it does one rotation. Once you've completed that rotation, you measure from the tip of the barrel to the tape again, and that's how you find your twist rate. The twist rate on this barrel is 1 and 8, so it's got a 1 and 8 twist rate. So every inch every 8 inches I'm doing one turn. Next thing we're gonna go over is the headspace. The headspace on this between the two barrels. It's all the same. Thankfully, with the 6.5 Creedmoor upgrade, the head spacing is identical. So I gotta bring it up a couple things real quick. So for the headspace, again, because I switched out barrels, the go no go gauges are what you need to determine whether or not your headspace is good. So what you would do, you'd open up, pull back the charging handle, you'd lock it back to the rear, and then you would insert your go gauge. Once your go gauge has been inserted, what should happen is, and you would have to do all this carefully, you'd insert it in, you'd let it slide forward, and then if your charging handle locks, that means you're good. You have your head spacing and all that are great. And then when you go to put your no-go gauge in, you lock it in, you wouldn't be able to push in your charging handle, so you wouldn't hear that click. If you put your go gauge in and you don't hear that click, that means something is off. You need to take your barrel off and you need to readjust some things, check some things, make sure nothing's broken or cracked. Fairly simple, and that's all. All you need to do for your head spacing. I'm sorry, I'm spacing out. So, next thing we're going to go over is your fire pin protrusion. So, in order to do that, you need to take your bolt out and you leave your firing pin in, because right there, you can see right there in the center, that's where my firing pin is. You could take anything, any tool that you could push down. And as you can see, at least I hope you could see, there's my firing pin. It is now protruded through the rest of the bolt carrier. In order to actually figure out the measurement for it, you need a micrometer to measure that. My micrometer batteries are dead. I have a digital one, so I'm unable to give you the exact measurement on it at the moment. But in order to do so, like I said, you just protrude it out of your bolt, and you get your micrometer. If you have a digital one, make sure the batteries are charged. If you have a dial one, a regular dial, hey, by all means, pull it out, figure out what your protrusion is, figure out what the protrusion should be. You don't want it to be too much, and you don't want it to be not enough, because if it's not enough, the firing pin won't strike the round, won't send the bullet downrange. That's all I got for this week. Pretty simple. It's a little longer than it's supposed to, but I hope I explained everything good enough for everybody, and you got a little something out of this. All right. See y'all soon.